Yes guys, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. My name is FPL Nacho, and in this video we are going to be looking at the top transfers going into game week 5. So if you are new around here, make sure you do hit that subscribe button, and if you enjoy the content, make sure you do hit a like. So guys, without further ado, let's take a look at the first player ahead of game week 5. Okay, so first up, we are looking at Arsenal's Ødegaard off the back of his 10-point haul in game week 4. And it's actually back-to-back double-digit hauls for Ødegaard. Game week 3, he had that amazing 16-point haul as well. So for those managers that have started the season with Ødegaard, it's been a really, really strong season for him in this kind of new position that he's playing in this Arsenal team. Now, the reason I want to hint on that is because of the goal involvement that he is having so far in this Arsenal team. I want to draw your eyes to the goals scored so far. 3 goals scored so far this season, whereas he hasn't had any assists. Now, if we cast our minds back to last season, his involvement in the Arsenal team was very much in the narrative of him being a chance creator rather than a goal getter, effectively. But right now, that narrative is very much flipped, and he has been very much in and amongst the goals and picking up some very advanced positions with the formation that Arsenal have been adopting so far this season. The big thing about Ødegaard right now, and I think again this is where underlying stats do really play a part, is looking at the disparity between the goals scored and the expected goals. You can see there the expected goals of 0.96. So we have quite a big gap there between what he has actually delivered and what he potentially should have delivered if we are really taking into account underlying stats. And that's also shown here on the FPL points. He's had 31 so far this season, which is fantastic. But the expected FPL points is 21.8. So I'm not too worried about the expected FPL points. It's more the underlying stats of the expected goals for me, thinking, is this going to be a sustainable avenue for points going forward for Ødegaard? I personally don't think it is, but that doesn't rule him out as a fantastic option going forward, because what I am really interested about is that the expected assists is currently at 0.23. Now, based on his stats last season, these are really below what he was delivering last season, and I would anticipate him for potentially an improvement in the assist department going forward. So while we might see the goals not necessarily be maintained at this level, we could see a revert back to the norm and his assists start to increase in this Arsenal team going forward. Now, I think the big debate right now for a lot of managers is it Ødegaard or is it Martinelli that we need to target? Now, first and foremost, if you haven't had Martinelli or Ødegaard starting off in the season, then you might feel like you have missed the boat. However, I still think there is definitely returns to come looking at the fixtures going forward for Arsenal. They have Aston Villa at home, who are right now an absolute mess under Steven Gerrard. Away to Man United. Well, we never know what kind of Man United we're going to be getting this season at all. Everton at home, Brentford away, and then the Spurs at home, that North London derby, which is always a fantastic game. So I don't think you have missed the boat if you haven't got any Arsenal investment right now. So if you're sat with an 8 million midfielder and you want to come down to a cheaper alternative, I think Ødegaard or Martinelli are fantastic routes. Now, which one should you go for? I still think Martinelli is the route to go for. Now, looking at it right now, Martinelli has an expected goals of 1.85. Comparing that to Ødegaard's 0.96 is a big gap there. And even in the expected assists, Martinelli is on 1.01. So the area that we would think Ødegaard is going to be beating Martinelli in, Martinelli is delivering in that department as well. And I mentioned about the shot volume. Ødegaard's 9 shots so far this season is very good for his standards, but Martinelli on 14, it's just that level above as well. So I think based on what we've seen, Martinelli is still the route to go for. And looking at our projected points based on Fantasy Football Fix's algorithm, we have got over the next 5 game weeks, Martinelli scored 23.2 points, which is actually the 4th best of all midfielders, it's worth noting, at any price point. Ødegaard on 16.2. So again, quite a big gap here on the projected points for the 2 players. Now, I know that Ødegaard is kind of the fan favourite right now, and with the current form that he's in, I don't knock any manager bringing him in. But my first question will be, do you own Martinelli? And if you don't, that should be your first play. Now, is it a case of going for Martinelli and Ødegaard? That is where I think the question lies if you're already a Martinelli owner. And I think the answer there is still going to be no. I think you need to have the combination of Jesus and Martinelli going forward. I think that is quite a template move which is delivering right now for a lot of managers. I think the double up in in the midfield department isn't a necessity right now. Now, it's worth noting, Arsenal as a team for expected goals is currently third best on 8.19. So having investment in the attack is definitely worth doing. They've scored 11 goals so far this season. But I think going for the triple up is not really the best route to go for right now. I wouldn't recommend a Martinelli, Jesus and Ødegaard combination. So my recommendation is going to be continue with the Martinelli and Jesus double up. If you want to go differential with the template, then yes, Ødegaard is an option. But just looking at these underlying stats right now, I just don't see this sort of form continuing going over the next 5 game weeks. But again, guys, let me know in the chat, what are your thoughts on Arsenal's Ødegaard? And are you an early investor in him and have reaped them recent returns? So next up, guys, we'll be looking at a cheaper midfielder, which I think could deliver more points than Ødegaard going forward. Okay, and that man is going to be Brighton's Pascal Gross. Now, this man has been a bit of a question mark in the community over the last few weeks. Can he continue the sort of points that he has been delivering over the previous weeks? And in game week 4, he did deliver 11 points in game week 4 with that goal, and a fantastic performance for not just Pascal Gross, but also for Brighton as a team as a whole. Now, looking at the points scored so far for him, we can see 35 points and expected FPL points of 29. So that's really great reading to see there, because I think the big thing right now in the narrative for Brighton as a team and for their FPL assets is that while they are a fantastic team, they don't necessarily get the goals or convert the chances to be considered options. I'm talking about the likes of Welbeck and Trossard over the years. Gross right now is really delivering in this Brighton team, and at 5.8 million, a fantastic alternative for those managers that are maybe already owning Martinelli and are sat there with maybe a Neto or someone like that where they have the money to go elsewhere. Gross is a very, very interesting option. Now, you can see there 3 goals so far this season and expected goals of 1.75. So while there is a big gap between Ødegaard and his output, Pascal Gross right now is a lot closer, and I actually like what I'm seeing there. And the big thing as well is that he's actually quite a well-rounded asset. 1 assist, but an expected assist of 1.4. So I'm seeing different routes to avenues of points for Pascal Gross. Unfortunately, we have pretty much confirmed that he isn't on penalties. That is going to be the duty of McAllister. But I still think that looking at this as a well-rounded asset, he is looking like a fantastic option going forward. Now, I want to note here that they have the 4th best fixtures based on our fixture analyzer over the next 5 game weeks. Fulham away, which I actually think is going to be a very tricky fixture. Fulham at Craven Cottage is going to be a tough game for any team. But then Leicester at home, who have been conceding goals for fun. Bournemouth away, who conceded 9 against Liverpool. Crystal Palace, and then Liverpool. So in particular, the next 3 for Brighton are fantastic. And I don't think you've missed the boat necessarily on Pascal Gross. Now, looking at him as an actual general asset, he is 3rd best for XG for midfielders at 7 million or less at 1.75, as you can see on screen there. So he is really up there with those assets who are considerably more expensive than him. So I'm looking at the likes of maybe Jack Grealish at 7 million, looking at the likes of Martinelli at 6.4 and Ødegaard at 6.5. But importantly, as I mentioned, he's such a well-rounded asset, 2nd best for expected assists for midfielders at 7 million and under on 1.4. So I'm seeing really good things for him here, and not only the best asset at this price point, but also floating around that 6.5 range, which is really important when we are looking at maybe saving some money in the bank. And just looking forward to the future game weeks as well. Projected points for Pascal Gross. This is for midfielders at 6.5 million and below for the next 5. Martinelli tops the tree on 23.2. And then Harrison and Rodrigo are just behind Martinelli on 20.8 and 19.5. But what I want to note there is Pascal Gross just behind on 19.4 projected points. So while the likes of Martinelli are slightly ahead, these Leeds players who are maybe 0.5 or 1 million more expensive than Pascal Gross, we can actually go for the cheaper alternative and get very, very close projected points for him. So you haven't missed the boat on Pascal Gross. I think there are still returns to come for him. And it's worth noting as well, as a team, Brighton are 6th best for expected goals on 6.35. So again, when I'm looking to bring in a player, I not only want to look at the player, I want to look at the team as a whole, because sometimes you can invest in a player who's kind of carrying a team. And while you do get that talisman theory, and you of course get the involvement in the bonus points, I think for longevity, if a team is performing well, it means that there is more potential with the player performing well. And I see that for both Brighton and Pascal Gross going forward. So no, I do not think you've missed the boat on Pascal Gross. I still think he is a good investment going forward. He very much is operating very close to Danny Welbeck in the formation that they are playing at Brighton. So last up, guys, let's touch on a forward who has been delivering week in, week out, that we're all kind of looking past him going into game week 5. And that man, of course, is going to be Fulham's Mitrovic. He is now 6.7 million off the back of his 7 points in game week 4. Now, first and foremost, we just need to touch on Mitrovic and Fulham as a whole, because he has been delivering week in, week out against some very, very difficult competition. Now, he has played against so far Liverpool, Wolves, and he missed a penalty in Wolves, it's worth noting, which actually gave him negative FPL points. Those Mitrovic owners will definitely remember that. Then Brentford, which has been a tough task for any team so far this season, and then Arsenal. So Fulham have had an absolute dog run so far, and going forward they have Brighton, Tottenham and Chelsea. But based on what we've seen him do against these sort of teams, I don't think we necessarily need to now think that, oh my god, they have these fixtures coming up, he can't deliver. Yes, they are going to be difficult fixtures for Mitrovic, there's no doubt about it, and for Fulham as a whole, but we have seen him actually be able to deliver on the biggest stages against these big teams. Now, we've touched on FPL points and expected FPL points. We'll just look at this. Expected FPL points for Mitrovic, 27.09. FPL points, 25. Now, of course, the big reason for this discrepancy here is because he did have a penalty against Wolves, which was saved. So that will skew the expected FPL points, because naturally he is going to be more in favour of scoring that penalty than missing it. So he probably would have been just above his expected FPL points. But nonetheless, these are still phenomenal readings against the opponents that he's had. And of course, the output that he's delivered right now. 4 goals so far, but as I mentioned, expected goals of 3.41 is brilliant reading. And he's actually putting in some numbers in the expected assists as well. Very much when I consider Mitrovic in this Fulham team, it's all about just getting it on his head at the back post, or him being kind of the funnel for all their attacks. But to see him actually having 0.48 expected assists is really actually pleasant reading to see, showing that there could be future returns in that area, not just in the goal involvement. Now, he is currently second best for expected goals of all forwards. Okay, so that's all forwards taking into account the Haalands, the Kanes, the Gabriel Jesuses on 3.41. So he is offering phenomenal FPL value. Now, as I mentioned, the fixtures coming up are difficult for Mitrovic, is worth mentioning. He is currently 7th best for projected points over the next 5 games for all forwards at 17.7. So he isn't necessarily offering the best value going forward, but I can guarantee you that our projected points wouldn't have had him at 25 points over the opening 4 games. So he's very much over-delivering right now, but that isn't to say that he can't continue over-delivering over the coming game weeks. Now, what I'm seeing here is underlying stats are very, very good. Can he deliver against these sort of big teams? I think there's definitely potential there. Fulham have proved that they are strong at home at Craven Cottage. Brighton is going to be a very difficult game. But the likes of Spurs and the likes of Chelsea, I think there are going to be potential for him to get points. The big thing for me right now, do I want to be going into Mitrovic with these fixtures coming up when there are still other alternatives available, or cheap midfielder routes that we can go for, which then remains the kind of template that we have of Haaland and Jesus up top with a 4.5 million forward? I think if you want to really optimise and have the full potential of Mitrovic going forward, I think he plays really well into a wild card in game week 8 or game week 9. Getting yourself involved in the Nottingham Forest away or Newcastle, fixtures after that are absolutely fantastic for Fulham going forward. And I think if you're looking at the next 3 thinking, it's probably not the best time to go for Mitrovic. I know he's done well in the past, but I still don't think he's going to do the best against Brighton, who are posting the 2nd best expected goals conceded, and a Spurs team who are really on form right now on the results department, is worth noting. So for me, while he is delivering, and he is going to continue delivering, I have no doubt about that, I am still at the kind of conclusion that bringing him in a game week 8 or game week 9 wildcard would be my preference going forward. But I have absolutely no arguments if somebody wants to invest in him going into that Brighton game at home. So guys, that is going to be our 3 transfers covered going into game week 5. Let me know in the comments, are any of these players on your radar, or have you even considered bringing them into your team? for game week 5. Worth noting, it is a Tuesday deadline for game week 5, 6 p.m. UK time. So make sure you do have that in your diaries. It isn't a weekend fixture or deadline this week. So thank you very much for tuning in, guys. If you haven't already, make sure you do hit that subscribe button and like the video if you enjoyed what you are seeing. We are dropping daily videos each and every day, of course, being daily. So make sure you are tuning in, and we will see you in the next video. Take care. Cheers.